The simplest answer is that they need you in some capacity to feed their ego so that they can stay in denial. They need you to either A, praise and love on them so that they can feel good about themselves, or B, be the scapegoat so that when they feel bad about themselves, they can feel good about themselves. And if you're new to my page, my name is Jackie and I'm giving real examples of emotional abuse tactics so that you can spot them in your relationships. Everything my ex had was because of me. The house we lived in was because of my credit and my down payment. Any positive relationship he had with his kids was because of what I provided for them. He benefited from my mental labor and my financial support. I planned what was for dinner and I paid all the bills. He benefited from my domestic labor. I did all the cooking and all the cleaning. I cut the grass and I took out the garbage. He didn't want me to leave because then he would have to face the fact that he contributed nothing to the life we had together. And that would be a bruise to his ego. He felt entitled to this life even though he contributed nothing to it. But if you ask him, he contributed everything. But I think the biggest reason that he wanted me to stay was because he benefited from my emotional labor. For a period of time, I enabled his emotional immaturity. I managed his feelings for him. I catered to all of his wants and needs. I tiptoed around his big scary feelings trying to not upset him. And I did everything the way that he wanted so that he wouldn't get upset. I made sure he didn't feel bad about himself. And I praised him for the bare minimum so that he wouldn't be abusive. This made him feel good. This made him feel important. So when I started to realize that the bar was constantly moving and nothing I did was ever good enough, and I was emotionally depleted, I stopped praising him. I started calling out his hurtful behavior, but that's when he needed me the most. He needed me to be his emotional punching bag. He needed somebody to blame his feelings on. He had so much unprocessed, internalized shame that he was in denial about that it was easier to blame me for his feelings of inadequacy than to do the emotional work to unpack it all. So of course, whenever I would try to end the relationship, he would beg me to stay. He would promise to change. He definitely didn't want everything to be over because then he would be faced with the reason why I left, his abuse. He would say things like, "You're giving up on me." And I would tell him, "You're not the same person I met." And he would say, "No, that's who I am. I really want you to look at me the same way again." So in other words, he didn't want me to leave because he needed me to validate that he wasn't a shitty person. And I did that by either praising him or being his scapegoat. But of course, the change never lasts because they don't get to the root of the abuse, the entitlements. He felt justified to be abusive because it's easier to blame me than to look at the reflection in the mirror. So yeah, of course he wanted me to stay. But it wasn't because he loved me. I was a tool for him to use so that he could feel better about himself.